Okay, we're back here for Tuesday of this week. So hopefully yesterday was okay for you guys, kind of a new concept. We've been working with fractions with tenths and hundredths. So I'm kind of showing the learning targets again that I showed you yesterday. We're on learning target 1 for this new unit, which is equivalent fractions working with tenths and hundredths. We're going to do 2 and 3 later on in the week and next week, but just as our focus was for yesterday, it's going to be kind of the same bubble for today. We're going to be working with taking a fraction that has 10 in the denominator and creating an equivalent fraction with 100 in the denominator. And once we get comfortable doing that, then we're going to be able to add fractions with tens and hundreds in their denominators, and that's what we're going to be working on for today. So again, as we go through this, there's a sheet from yesterday that you guys actually created and made like your own little dry erase board, which is this sheet right here. I shared it again in Google Classroom for you guys, but if your folks printed this out yesterday and you made your own little dry erase board out of a baggie and your dry erase marker, you'll be good to go with that one. And then the other sheet that you're going to need for today is this sheet that's also in Google Classroom, and I shared this with Mom and Dad too last night, so they will be able to print that off for you if you want to work off of here, or you can just kind of write these problems out as we go along. What we're going to do is we're actually going to be doing the odd number problems together for practice, and then you guys are going to be doing the even problems for part of your homework for tonight. Okay, so just a real quick review from what we talked about yesterday. So you see we have our fraction grid here. The top one is broken into tenths because there's 10 columns that are here. The bottom one's broken into hundredths because there's 100 little cubes that are on here. So this is a 10th grid and a 100th grid. And kind of the idea that we started with yesterday is that whatever I do in a 10th grid, so if I colored in 1/10, if I do the same thing down below in the hundredths grid, so there's my 1/10, if I color this in, I've colored in the same thing on the bottom one. I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of all of my 100ths colored in. So we can see that as an equivalent fraction, 1/10 equals 10 hundredths. And that's kind of the idea of our whole lesson here. And then what we kind of started to think about yesterday was the fact that, well, if I have a fraction that has a 10 in the denominator, to make it an equivalent fraction that has 100 in the denominator, all I really have to do is move it one more place value or multiply by 10, because 10 times 10 is 100. And if I multiply this by 10, I have to do the numerator by 10 as well. And 1 times 10 is 10. And then if I did that, 1/10 times 10 is 10 hundredths. So that's kind of the idea of the whole lesson. I can take a fraction that has 10 in the denominator, multiply the numerator and denominator both by 10, and that will give me the equivalent fraction on a hundredths chart, okay? Now, let's kind of move over here and try this one. So let's say I've got 1, 2, let's throw a third one in. So there's 1, 2, 3 out of the 10 on this side of the chart colored in. So what's our fraction going to be for that? Well, again, this one's only broken in 10, so my denominator is going to stay 10. How many of those 10 do I have colored in? I've got 3 of them colored in. Now, already your brain's screaming, I know what to do. I'm going to take both those numbers times 10, and that's going to give me my equivalent fraction for 100. And you would be right. But again, just to kind of show you what that looks like, I'm going to color in the same amount down below in the hundreds grid. There's 1, 2, 3 columns. That's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then there's 3 across, so 10 times 3 is 30. So if I counted each of those individually, I'd have 30 out of 100 that are colored in. But again, you guys remembered, if I have a 10 in the denominator, to turn it into a 100, all I do is multiply both the numerator and denominator by 10. 3 times 10 is 30, 10 times 10 is 100. So that's kind of the whole deal about changing tenths into hundredths and making it what we call an equivalent fraction. 3/10 and 31/100, excuse me, too much pop tonight. 3/10 and 31/100 are really the same exact thing. You can see it on our grid. We've colored in the same amount, even though they're different numbers, they're the same exact fractions, okay? So that was kind of our review. If you had your grid sheet to kind of color along with me, that would be great. If not, just watching the video should have helped you out with that. So taking tenths, making it hundredths, that's a review of our lesson yesterday that we're going to use for today. So this is going to be video number 1. I'm going to stop this one and upload it and then start working on the actual lesson for today.